Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Collar Angst podcast, where we dive deep into the realm of any and really everything blue collar. We're going to take a look at a wide range of trades and careers that range from welders and electricians to police officers and everything in between. The guests we bring on the show, the listeners, really essentially you, are the fuel to keep this whole thing going. With that being said, please enjoy, and as always, like, subscribe, follow, do whatever it is that you do to stay up to date so that you don't miss a thing. Thanks. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Blue Collar Angst. We have Connor with us, as always, and we have a special guest out of Mississippi. Mike Ewing is his name, and he is an industrial maintenance foreman, and he reached out to us over Instagram. Something we've asked and we're really excited for from the start is get new people on here. Mike is awesome. Looking at his content on Instagram and some of the things that he's doing, it just made sense to get him on here as quick as we could. So with that being said, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Real good. Real good. Glad to be here. Thank y'all for the invite.
Mike, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate you doing that.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Maybe you could just start off and just kind of maybe explain what your trade is, because that's not as familiar of a sounding title as, whatever lineman
Right.
or whatever. Can you just explain to the audience a little bit about what you do?
Well, in industrial maintenance, what we do, our craft and trade is diverse. From anything from welding and fabrication to demolition, to millwright, no electrical. I don't fool with electrical. I let the pros do that, and I don't. And pretty much anything in between that scope of work. If it's new machinery, we go in, we install, we fabricate, and if it tears up, we go in and fix it. Whether it be hydraulics, pneumatics, wax lines, grease lines, all these mills that we travel to and we work in, we basically are the grunt crew for the maintenance staff, and we're their lifeline. Where we come in, they got something really bad, and we have, specialties in our scope of work, whether it be pressure vessels that, we just got through doing some heavy emergency call maintenance on a high pressure nitrogen tank that actually runs the presses at an OSB mill that we tend to. Whether it be thermal oil lines. We were just out in Arkansas at a couple of mills down in South Arkansas, right outside of El Dorado. I was corrected on how to say that, by the way. And we're dealing with the thermal oil, and there's a lot of variables in between that and what we do. That it's where we're mechanics, we're millwrights, we're welders, we're riggers, we're demolition specialists, if you will. I won't say expert, but pretty much anything in the scope of work of repair, maintain, take down, and recover. That's what we do. Our days vary from, it could be anything, and then we get an emergency call and have to break away from it and go. Like, we could have something just catastrophic, just tear apart. You're dealing with high pressure hydraulics, cylinders, and really sketchy places, and it can get really dangerous. It's not just if I could be so bold about this, it's what I attest to. I heard this a long time ago, and it stuck with me, and I really tried to break out of the containment of that. Is, oh, you're just a welder. Oh, you're just a welder. Well, yeah, I'm a welder. I'm a really good welder. But, when I started to analyze that was, basically all I could do. I didn't know anything about pneumatics. I didn't know anything about running pipe. I didn't know anything about pipe fitting. I didn't know anything outside of my bubble. And as I, for lack of better terms, began to evolve into the trades, I started to see more opportunities to where my time became more valuable. The more valuable I became, the more opportunities that opened up. The more opportunities opened up, the higher the pay scale went, and the more traveling I got to do. So.
So what mills are you working on? So you said OSB. Are you working
Yeah.
on like wood mills, steel mills, or kind of everything?
Yeah, oh, it's they make pretty much what you see right here above me. It's the particle board, and any Lowe's, Home Depot you go, you see the particle board. I know I've handled the machines that process that from the from the logs to the finished product. You know, and that's what we handle a lot of. And we go to certain mills. We have a tube mill right here, and we got a crew actually at a copper tube mill in my hometown, not too far from here, that takes raw copper and scrap copper, and they have a foundry there that they melt it back down and make copper tubing. And we're in there all the time. Machinery is machinery. Things break no matter what the product they're running. We go in. If it's a hydraulic cylinder, it's a hydraulic cylinder. It's pretty much cut and dried. Point A to point B. We're just the dash in between it, basically.
So,
And
Mike, why why did you pick blue collar work? You seem like a super bright guy. Seem like a guy that could have gone and gotten a degree in just about anything. So, what got you? Got you in the blue collar world?
my dad, My dad did actually. See, when I grew up, not too far from here, just right outside of Tupelo, Mississippi. And see, you can always tell somebody that's grown up in Mississippi because we as Mississippians, we omit an ISSI, not because of the lack of our intellect. That's the way we say it. But my dad, we grew up really poor, really, really poor. Uh, and my dad, he was a hustler by nature. He didn't have a trade, he didn't have a profession. He just had um, his work ethic. He wasn't the greatest person in the world, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother story. But well, the one thing he would always do, he was always hustling, making money, doing something with his hands. From mechanic, he built a shop out of nothing, and he would work on local vehicles there. And I grew up in a junkyard, so I was always around a cutting torch, a welder, you name it. I was around it. So I was watching him, and I always kind of wanted to do something like that. I always wanted to walk in his footsteps, but the situation between he and I wasn't the greatest. So I would really just try to emulate what I saw him do. And when I was in not when Votech, the vocational school, it was right when I was junior high, seventh grade. I won't never forget it. There was an old tombstone Lincoln sitting in there in the back, just covered in crusty dust. And I asked permission to go back there, and I picked that stinger up, put a hood on, and I struck that first arc, and I was bit. I wanted to do stuff with my hands. I wanted to build stuff. I wanted to tear stuff down. I didn't feel that I was qualified to be an intellectual. I liked the feeling of being outside, smelling fresh turned dirt and diesel smoke. I love that, and it's been in me since day one, and here we are. You know, uh, it's just something about it's just a certain sense of pride of being able to do something with your hands that other people really kind of look back and say, wow, I wished I could do that. you know
Yeah.
and there's people out there, there's people out there like that.
Yeah.
I run into them all the time. Call them engineers.
Yeah.
I got some really good friends that are engineers, really great people. But
Yeah. We call them assholes where I come from. Dude, let's talk a little bit about we don't have to go too deep into it, just whatever you're comfortable with. But growing
yeah,
up, um, something I'm kind of curious about, like, your dad starting up a mechanic shop and working in that, starting it from scratch. Um, Maybe talk a little bit about your area or maybe his upbringing
yeah.
and what kind of shaped that.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Where I'm from, you got to think about this in the early '80s. When I say is, there was not a lot of opportunities, and that's a lot of opportunities. You had three big mills, whether it be the sawmill industry, whether it be the copper tube mill, or whether it be furniture. That was your options. Everybody knew this growing up and going to school, and he'd always get these big ideas. He couldn't read or write. He'd write his last name, his first and last name. but he could convince you that he could move a mountain, just to hear him talk. And when he put his mind to it, whether it was, no matter how, if it what kind of grand it was, it may not have been on a grand scale, but he fulfilled what he said he would do, and I always saw that. And when I told him, I came home one day and I told him I wanted to be a welder, and he said, "Well, I want you to be the best welder you can possibly ever be." So as time progressed, I was in, say, I was a sophomore in high school. Right before I turned 17, he said he wanted to start his own business. So we progressed from, the mechanic work to a custom welding shop. And we built that dude from the ground up. 17 years old, he had, a lot of debt, several bankruptcies. And in that time, he put everything in my name. So the day I walked outside and I saw my name on the building, I knew this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I mean, there's a man only got a few opportunities in life to really make a mark at what he does, and that's where I really felt like I had purpose. That what I did mattered. Because everything else, the horrible situation outside of that was the only thing I actually had, and that's really what groomed me into being a hyperachiever, if you will. Because like right now, I'm 50 years old, about to be 51, and if I just feel like if I don't have like 1,000 things done by 9 in the morning, I'm failing. I'm giving a subpar effort. Because not only my employer depends on me, because I am far from being a yes man, but I push myself, through the pain, through the fatigue, through whatever. I try to be the example and not the excuse, because I've got young men, watching my behavior. And, if they see me slacking, then they're going to start lacking. Then I have no platform, valid platform to correct that. And so that's really just where that evolved from, where that came from, is trying to prove my dad wrong, that, I could actually accomplish something if I set my mind to it.
So
And
I love. Sorry, Connor. I was gonna say I love talking. I'm sure Connor does too. We talk to a lot of guys that are our age. I'm almost 30, and to talk to people that have been in the industry, or you said 50 years old, and I mean, it's so cool to hear your guys' experience. You want to be the example, not the
yeah,
excuse.
yeah.
That's just simple things that are so profound, but that takes a long time to learn that stuff.
Well, it the thing I try to hammer home with, guys. I ask a lot of people this, when we sit and we talk, older guys, younger guys, anybody that'll listen. What is a leader's number one job? If you're pushing a crew, what's your number one job above anything else? I mean, it's your absolute number one priority. What is it? I get a lot of answers, and they're always in the scope of where I want to go, but I want somebody to actually think outside of what they see, because if you never ever search deep things, you'll never get past the surface of where you're at. And the thing I tell them is this is, they'll say, well, it's, safety. Well, that's good, but it's not it. Production, yeah, that's good, but it's not it. And they'll rattle on, just grabbing for shadows, trying to give an answer, so that's not the answer I'm looking for. And they'll break down and they'll ask me, well, what is a leader's number one job? I said, well, a true leader's number one job is to identify the raw talent that he's been given and cultivate that, nurture it, and mold it into something greater than he is. That's how you pass your legacy. That's how I teach my son. That's how you pass the legacy of the blue collar, whether you're an electrician, whether you're a plumber, whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a welder, whether you're a steam fitter, it doesn't matter. The principles and the fundamentals of this blue collar lifestyle is just that, is that if you're a leader and you have men and women placed under your authority, then it is your obligation to show them and let them understand their own true potential so that they can rise above you. You know, a lot of guys, they call themselves leaders. They've been put in leadership positions, but they are inferior. They have an inferiority complex, and it's really, really identifiable. You can pick them out of a crowd. I know I can, because they're very insecure of anybody starting to shine brighter than they do, because they're holding on to their own importance to the company, if you will. They're company men, and they're not invested into the people that's been placed in their, you know, in their hands. And that's really where my focus is, especially this younger generation that's coming out, because we're in different times now. It's not like it was when I was a kid. I mean, that's obvious. And there's a huge deficit of workers that's actually in the field. There is a surplus of work that needs to be done. So what's going to happen? And well, it's going to have to change with people like us that you know, that are invested in changing the culture, the blue collar culture. Because blue collar, man, it's not a brand that you put on. I see so many, and it's cool. I like it. I'm not throwing rocks at it, but it's not a shirt you put on. It's who you are when you get up. It's who you are when you lay down. That's who you are. It's you. It's the integrity of your own makeup, that through the good and the bad, that's just who you are. That's what you do, and that's what you pass on.
I love that.
In a nutshell.
That's awesome, man. You know, you talked a lot about teaching and training, especially this younger generation. And like you said, you know, this generation's not like the past generation. How have you, I guess, coped with, or I guess what's the word I'm looking for? How have you tried to inspire this younger generation and help them get over the obstacles that are in, you know, our generation that's going on right now?
Well, that's a funny story, because I was on the way back from Arkansas. It's a 5.5 hour drive back here. And I was thinking about it. And just had time to really just meditate on it. And, you know, and I was like, and I really almost got drunk on the Kool-Aid of the negativity of it, you know, of how there's so few people, you know, that are stepping up and filling these positions that's got to be filled. Because quite honestly, you know, if the blue collar men and women of this country were to stop what they were doing right now, this country would fall to its knees, buckle. It would stop. It would come to a screeching halt. That's a fact. So, and I was started to look at it, and then it was just like, you know, like a ray of sunlight hit me in the eyes, that I was looking at it the wrong way. I was looking at it negatively, and I couldn't see any positives in it. But we've had bad times since time began. So how do we navigate through the mud? So when, you know, there's a saying I heard: when you pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud. Okay, the mud here is that there's a deficit of people willing to do the work, and there's a surplus of work that nobody wants to do. Now, how is that a positive? It's real simple, and it's what I try to instill to these young men and women, that I learned at an early age how to bargain and negotiate my time, my value, and my worth. And that's what I want to pass on to these individuals, is to know your personal worth, that you don't have to beg. If you have a skill, you have a trade, you're a valuable individual to somebody. And they, you know, that pay scale is not set on it's not carved in stone, because that's where the negotiations start. Let's say if you guys came to me and I needed 2 guys to work, and you had a skill that I really needed, well, there's some bargaining and negotiating going on. Now, that's the way I look at it with the deficit of in the job market. That's a plus to all these young men and women coming out of these welding academies, coming out of these trade schools. Why? It's real simple. It empowers these young men and women to realize and say, "Hey, I'm controlling my own destiny here. You need me. I don't need you. There's 15 other guys that are willing to pay me more than what you're willing. I want to work here. Now let's talk like men and women. Let's get down and let's get down to it. You know, I understand my worth. If you want me to be employed with, this is the least I'll take." You know, giving them that negotiating ability to, because what are you doing at the end of the day? You're trading time for money. That's what you're doing. How valuable is your time? And that's what I want to instill to people. that today's job market is an open arena for somebody willing to go out there and take it through, because nobody's going to give you anything. You got to have the initiative and the drive, and that's something you cannot give anybody. You can give anybody tons of information on how to do these things, but they have to have the willingness, the drive, and the determination to go find it, go do it, and make it happen. And that's where the nurturing, the cultivating, the molding of these individuals, and being the example that, hey, I can do that too. That's out there for me. I want that. This is how I got to get it, and I'm going after it. I'm going to show you. I can show you better than I can tell you. And it empowers people, because we do have a surplus of people who feel entitled. So the entitlement, that's neither here nor there, as long as I'm going after what I need to go after. And I'm taking care of me, and I'm taking care of whoever else I can bring with me, because we're stronger together. We're unified in this. And hey, just like this right here, if you guys didn't unite and bring this platform, then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. The information wouldn't be getting out on the airwaves. There would still be people sitting wondering who, what, where, why, and how. But here, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off, man. I was
No.
just going to say something I love about, and we'll share your page on Instagram and Facebook, but something you're really good at is articulating what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, you do this with the younger guys, and you have so much experience with it. Going back to when you're talking about leadership, and I was just thinking as you were talking about all the, the troubles, and it is easy to get, caught in the mud sometimes, get negative about it. But, something Connor's really good at is he's always looking at that silver lining, like the opportunity that you're talking about. And I'm a realist, right? I feel like I think very practically about things. When you're talking about leadership, I agree 100%. A leader's job is to develop other leaders. Anybody can be a manager or get a position like that. But a true leader, smart people surround themselves with other smart people. And I think, if you're in the blue collar trades and you're a boss of a 3-man crew, or you're in a big company and you're in charge of hundreds of guys, it's your responsibility to cultivate that talent, because
it is.
The second you don't, they could be gone, right? And it's just so important. I feel like a lot of that happens, nowadays. We're losing a lot of good guys that aren't cultivated, but they could find other opportunities elsewhere, which is great.
Well, that's the main thing that I look at, when like say circumstances arise and you're not going to have everybody on the crew pulling the same load. That's automatic, and you as in leadership has to understand that, and have to navigate through that to get the day, be productive and be safely productive during the day. Because realistically, if you're leading men and women in the way that you're supposed to be, the way you would want to be led, the way you would want to be taught, the way you would want to be instructed, then guess what? Punctuality takes care of itself. Safety takes care of itself. Attitude takes care of itself. Everything that this is covered under the umbrella of leadership if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what I feel like is what's wrong with this country now and the job market is there's not, and I'm not glorifying myself because I'm steadily learning this and applying it as I go, is that there's not a lot of people willing to take those reins and take that responsibility and take that hit of accountability to change the culture. And they're just content with it, and we just want to complain about it instead of actually dealing with it one hand at a time. If you change one hand at a time, guess what? I got a 21-year-old right now on my crew that has changed dramatically in the 6 months that I've been mentoring this man. Not anything because of me, because he understands what I'm telling him is the truth, and he starts to see it. I've not always been, it's not always been peaches and cream. We've had our rocky roads, but the fact of the matter is this young man has saw that, hey, everything I've told him is true, and that if he started to apply everything I told him, that he's starting to excel in the company. And he's starting to excel in the company, he can start expanding outside the company, see, knowing his value and his worth, you're always negotiating for the highest bidder, the next job, the next whatever. I mean, unless you're just totally grassroots and you want to retire somewhere, and that's just not in my scope of logic, if you will. I'm gonna do what needs to be done until it's time to do something different. That's how I've lived my life. I've not always been in industrial maintenance. I was union iron worker for almost 9 years. Right before that, I was in a boilermaker shop for 7.5 years. There's cycles in my life where, and that's what I tell people: don't be afraid to recreate yourself, reinvent yourself. If you want to do something different, do something different. But just like my old man told me, if you're going to do it with everything you got. Go full send on it. Don't half step it, then complain about the mediocre results for the lack of what you put into it. The bottom line.
I was just going to kind of talk about I worked in a production group, and in this production group, we had several different lines that ran different stuff. And there was always this one group that always produced more than all the other lines. And it's always, they get the best material, they get the best jobs, they get this, they get that, they have the better equipment, whatever it might be.
Right.
And I was on one of those crews that wasn't. So when I finally moved over to that crew, I realized it was exactly what you were talking about. That supervisor had seen leadership early in these younger kids, and he had moved them in to positions that they could inspire their team and their leaders. And it was just, you could see it from the top all the way down that the best leaders were inspiring the next guy below them, and they were inspiring the person below them. And that's why they were so successful, and probably still are the most successful line on that team. And that was why. It wasn't because they got this or that or they had the better equipment. It was because they had the better team, because their leaders continue to inspire each other all the way down.
I think it's exactly like you're saying, Connor. It's like what Mike was talking about earlier, right? Like, good leaders recognize that talent, they cultivate it, but then also, if you're confident in yourself and you're, like you said, Mike, you can call somebody out. I could see it too. The second, I feel like I can just see it. You can see it in their eyes, right? And the second you meet somebody, you can just tell who they are, kind of thing. But the really smart leaders, just like your story, Connor, they're sitting there and they're cultivating. They're not afraid to bring in the great talent. That's what they want. That's what we should all want, right, on our crews. But how do you combat that, Mike? You have a lot of experience maybe working. If you were to give some young kid advice that was, or really anybody that was working for a boss or a manager that wasn't the best, that wasn't cultivating them, or how would you kind of guide them?
Attitude's everything. Attitude's everything. My son said this, and this is wild. A while back, we were at this mill. Okay, this is from a 19-year-old kid. He's very disciplined. We were in the paint booth that paints these OSB units, and I mean, we're saturated. I can send you guys a picture of it. We were saturated in teal green paint. I hate the color teal green, but we were like saturated. Well, the entire maintenance staff were taking break. We were contractors, It was me, my son, the head of maintenance, and the maintenance foreman. We're all four in this cramped little paint booth. Elbow deep in this sludge, and we're having to, we have to do some welding in there. Got to do some hot work in there. And it's, like I said, it's not always the most ideal situation, circumstances. By no means. It's not anywhere anybody would want to be. And my son, I looked at the maintenance foreman. I've known him for years, and I told him, I says, you know what my son says? Says there's no crappy jobs. I said, ain't that right, Nate? And he said, that's right. And he says, I said, what are they? He said, there's crappy attitudes. Now, we can find the negative in anything we can do, even the best thing that we got to do. And we can focus on that and really let that negative attitude, it's like a virus. It affects the entire team, and you got to go into it knowing And this is what I tell all young guys and gals that'll listen, that you got to know going into it. You got to calculate it. Either you're going to play chess or you're going to play checkers. Which one's it going to be? I prefer to play chess, to know my moves and know my opponent's moves. That way I can really capitalize on the situation. And what you really got to know going into it, you got to take the hit early, or else it's just going to be, you're going to dread whatever you're doing, wherever you're at, because this happens in everything. That 20% of the people are going to be doing 80% of the work 100% of the time. That is a factor you are not going to bypass, no matter how many pizza parties, no matter how many door prizes, no matter how many bonuses you give. You are not going to change a grown person's attitude. That has to happen from within. And I'm going to tell you a real quick story. This morning, got one of the best texts I've had in a long time from that one kid I was telling you about. And I can call him a kid. I'm going to be 51 years old. I can still call him a kid. But he texted me. He said, it's kind of off the wall. And he said, 6 a.m. I'm like, hadn't got even left yet. And he said, have you ever heard of the Belgian horse theory? I'm like, sounds interesting. I said, but no, I hadn't. I can't remember the guy's name, but what stuck out to me says that Belgian horses are utilized to do all the heavy pulling, and they're successful because each one of these horses are fighting together to be the one that sets the pace. And his next comment, he said, "Let's get it." I knew he was ready. I knew he was like, he was self-motivated. He didn't, motivation comes and goes, and what propels you when you don't have any motivation? What's your purpose? What's your plan? Is it just another day? Or you just existing, waiting to die? Or are you just waiting on a paycheck? Or are you actually doing something that means something to you? That's what matters. That's what motivates. And that's what's going to keep you doing what you're doing. And when it doesn't, you pull up your big boy and big girl britches and you go do something else. You find a better way, to traverse across this life we live, and that's it. It's attitude. Attitude is everything. Attitude will take you to the highest point of the mountain and the lowest part of the valleys. It's the bottom line. It's what you make out of it. You take that blame factor out of it. You point all the, that's what I tell my guys. I said, no matter if we win, lose, draw, success or failure, if it goes down south, I said, I'm going to take the hit. But if it's successful, I said, you guys are getting the credit because you're the ones doing the work. But if the plan fails, I'm the one that came up with the plan, so it's my responsibility. I take the hit. I don't get the pat on the back for your guys' hard work. I'm not going to do that. And that helps to let somebody understand that, hey, I've never had, this kind of environment. So this is somewhere I want to be. So if I want to be here, guess what's going to happen? They're going to want to do more. They're going to want to, climb. They're going to want to shine, and they're going to want to do it together. And because it's somewhere they want to be instead of somewhere they just got to be. It's the difference between having a job and a career. You can have many jobs, but how many careers do you really have?
That's really cool that you have the mentality. I actually started reading that book by Jocko Willis about it.
Willing.
Or Willings, yeah, whatever his last name is. What's it called? Extreme accountability or something? Or
extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership. Yeah, and he talks about getting in. He's on, the battlefield, and they start fighting with somebody, and it ends up being his own guys, and it's a soldier on soldier gunfight, and they come in and they investigate it. When he walks in with his team, and he says, "Whose fault is this?" And one of his guys raises his hand and says, "Hey, it's my fault. I should have been a better communicator." And they said, "No, it's not your fault. Whose fault is this?" Now the guy raises his hand, and eventually, like you said, he says, "No, this is my fault. This was my plan. This is my team. Okay. This is on me. I'm not punting on this on any of you. This is my fault, and I'm taking accountability for it." But that's a true leader, someone that can stand up and do that in the hardest of times, whether it might cost you your job or cost you a friendship or cost you a bonus or whatever it might have. that's where a true leader comes in, someone that can stand up and say, hey, no, I'm taking responsibility. But
Right.
yeah, I love that we talked about that, and I was like, hey, that's a great topic.
Yeah. They'll I can remember one of the earliest times I was in leadership. I was in this boiler shop. I did a video about this, but this guy always sticks out. His nickname was Memphis Mike. He was a good kid, dynamite kid. But he would I had 30 welders under me. Then I had to line them all out. And we had a night shift that came in prior, and I had to come in early and make sure, see where everything was, so I knew where to put my guys. And this one kid, he he would come in every morning like he'd smell something really bad. You know, he had that old sour look on his face every morning. I'm like, geez, what's gonna, this is the last guy I'm gonna deal with today. I mean, no, today's got to be the first guy. Today's got to be the first guy because I really need to know what's going on with him because I can't just go over and bark orders at him. I mean, he's not going to be productive. I mean, he's already in a foul mood, obviously. So I mean? Let's go find out what's going on. You know, I may be about to get cussed out. Who cares? So what? So I got to do, I got to do my job, not just my job as what I'm employed to do, but I got to find out what's going on with this kid. Because if I don't, and he winds up, with his head not in the game, and he winds up getting hurt or killed, that's on me. So I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, Mike," I said, "how's your morning?" He said, "I'm having a bad day." I said, "Really?" And I just started, I was praying the whole time I walked over there. I could just still see this kid. Oh, I said, "Okay." I said, "Is your baby sick?" He said, "No, my baby's not sick." I said, "Okay, you and your wife, you're having trouble." "No, we're not having trouble." I said, "Okay, your house payment behind?" I said, "I've been there." He said, "No, house payment's fine." I said, any utilities turned off?" "No." I said, all the bills are paid." I said, "Oh, you need some food in the house?" He said, "No, we got food in the house." I said, "Okay." I said, "Your mom, dad, they okay?" He said, "Yeah, they're fine." I said, "You got a funeral to go to or somebody's in the hospital?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, Mike," I said, your kids are okay. Your marriage is fine. Utilities are on. You got a car that got you to a job with a boss that actually gives a crap about you. I said you got your parents are doing great. You got food in the cupboard. Your lights and your water's on. Nobody's sick. You don't got a funeral to go to. I said, "Dude, sounds like you've already got the day whipped." I said, "Because Mike," and I got real serious with him. I said, "Because I can guarantee you," I said, there's probably a handful of men that are waking up this morning with one, if not more, of those issues and wondering how they're actually going to make it through the day." I said, "You feel me?" I said, sounds like you're blessed." And he looks and he just kind of like he let it go. He let it go. And he said, "I'm just having a rough start." And I said, "I can deal with that. I can deal with that." I said, "I can help you change that." And I said, "But to say we're having a bad day," I said, "we really don't know what that means." And I said, "Because there's some people out there that's having a really bad day right now." And that's it. I had to find a way to change his attitude so that he could actually see that, hey, things are not that bad, you know. And it's those little things like that. You have to, you get on a personal level with people and understand who they are, and then you'll figure out why they do the things they do, so that you can then navigate through the mud, like I say, you know, and actually cultivate that inner person that they haven't even met themselves, because they're going to be future leaders of men and women. So you got to equip them and prepare them the best you can, so that little dash in between the two most important days of your life actually means something. That's the legacy you're going to leave behind. So what are you going to make out of it? It's like my wife says all the time: either you are or you're not. There's no halfway. And that's what I tell my guys, and they know that I'm not a gray cloud kind of guy. It's either the sun is shining bright or it's pitch midnight. That takes all the variables of "I didn't know" out of it. That takes the ownership to the next level. Did you do everything that you were supposed to do? Did you do the best that you could do? If you didn't, then own it and change it. Don't blame somebody else for your own lack or your own mediocre effort. You do what you need to do because you're a professional and that you want what you do to matter. Bottom line.
I wish I would have saved this. You have an Instagram post. I'm bringing this up because, everything you're saying, in my head, I could just think, pathological positivity. That's just
Mm-hmm.
it just emulates from you. You had a post and it was talking about your wife. It was just a picture. I think you were in a hotel room, and I wish I had it pulled up, and it was just a picture of like a couple drinks from the gas station and
Yeah.
some food, and everybody else was going out and doing whatever they were doing for the night. Maybe hitting a bar or whatever, and you were like, "I'm gonna do the most important thing, that I can do," and it
Yeah.
was just connect with my wife on the road.
Yep.
Um, that's one of the first posts I saw. When you started liking Blue Collar Angst, and I just
Right.
thought that was so cool. It just stuck out to me.
Right.
I guess, has it always been like this for you, man? Have you always been, you know, 18 years old? You're starting in this, your career. I mean, when did the shift happen from like
Oh,
I'm just a worker to hey, I'm gonna set the bar for everybody that I'm around?
when
'Cause that's a special thing to have.
when I started in the boiler fab shop, I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I was a very, very bad person. And I blame my dad for a lot of stuff. I never took any ownership for my own actions. And it was what changed in me was my relationship with my creator. And that, I don't try to get hyper religious as a lot of people would like to say, but I know the shift happened in me when I became honest with the God I serve. And that's what changed me. It wasn't anything I could do. I'm a terrible person. Yeah, I can prove it to you, if I want to. But it's the fact that that accountability is held at a higher standard for me because of that. And and I want that, because I'm going to be honest with you. We run into hands every day that we don't understand, and this is going deep into this, deep under the surface, the underbelly of this blue collar life we live. We don't know what people are dealing with outside of work, and we don't. And a lot of times we just unplug from that. But if we can actually minister to someone on a personal level through work like that, then we can. That's how you hone that character of someone, is because of where I've been, and I see what the toll that it's taking. Then I can help change that by just being who I am and just actually caring because someone cared for me. You know, cared enough to say, "Hey, you're valuable. You belong here." And like I said, I stand on the shoulders of great men that did just that. They said, "Hey, dude, you're going down the wrong road. You could be so much more, but you're throwing it away." And just bluntly honest with me. That's where the shift happened. Is that when I realized that didn't nobody owe me anything, and all this anger, all this hate, this animosity was self inflicted, and it had to change. And that's where the shift actually took place, is that I became to understand that there are people that are going to watch me and follow me, whether I'm shining or whether I'm not. And they're gonna look at that, and they're either going to justify their own actions, or they're going to say, "Hey, I need to change as well." And that's a fact, because uh, we can talk a lot about a lot about a lot of things, but character shines through the smoke, and real recognizes real. And that's what I try to do. I try to connect with people on a real level so that they can see themselves for who they really are. Not to expose their weaknesses, but to really capitalize on their strengths. And if we do that, then we can, like I said, change the culture of this nation, because that's where it starts, is one hand at a time, one heart at a time, one mindset at a time. Because if left unchecked, we're on a path to destruction. Just as nobody. I mean, look around, man. You go to Philadelphia, bro. I mean, this. I mean, it's not like it was in the '80s. You know, it's this country is it has hope, and it starts with people that actually believe. You know, believe in the people that they are investing in. You know, and that's what I try to do. I just try to do that and treat people like I want to be treated because that's what's important. Is to let them know that hey, it's not just a job. You're here for a reason. You know what reason is that? Because realistically, we run into hands every day that hey, today's just not the day I want to live no more. I've run into several guys that they were ready, just ready just to end it. What are you going to do in that situation? Are you prepared, you know, to handle that in leadership? And you have to look at it like that. It's like, well, pass it on to the next guy. No, you don't do that. You don't do that. And not if you're a human, not if you actually care, not if you actually have character, then you deal with it. You deal with every situation that comes according to how you've been discipled to handle it. And that's what matters. That's what's going to change. It's more than a paycheck. It's more than a paycheck. Far more than just a paycheck. These are people's lives, you know. These are people that may be struggling on the day to day, that they don't know how they're going to make ends meet, and their mind's somewhere else and could, not we're heavy rigging like we do, and just miss that minor little detail and cause somebody else to their life, and that's a cataclysmic shockwave that's going to affect an entire crew. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the aftermath on that? Well, you do your very best to avert that situation by actually plugging in to the people that's around you. You can't do that if you're just up here. It's got to be in here. It's got to be something genuine. It's got to be something of value, of weight that actually, is can cause, just like right now. As I saw the excitement on you two young men. I call you young men because you are young men. You got something positive going on right here. But I saw the excitement and enthusiasm, and you see that's contagious. And when you get in an environment, you start doing those things, you start seeing it, you start picking up on it, you become sensitive to it, and you can work off that platform. You can build something great, not just something average. You can build something really great. I don't care if you're building, you're in a pallet shop in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi. You got a crew that buys into that kind of leadership, you can build an empire. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, listen, when I first started listening to you, as we were, talking, at first I was like, man, this guy's really passionate about blue collar work. But the more I've listened to you, I don't think that was right. I think what you're really passionate about is inspiring people and helping people and loving people and teaching people how to be better leaders and be better people. And I think that's what this country needs, man. Like, we had Tyler from Western Welding Academy on here, and he talked about this. We need to have these people inspire each other, and if we can get people and leaders to help inspire and teach the younger generation, that's where we're going to see a great spin on this country, and we're going to see a great shift.
Exactly.
So I appreciate your attitude, man, and the inspiring way your demeanor. I appreciate your demeanor and the inspiring way you bring yourself around.
I think of this story that you were telling about, you could see it written all over that guy's face that he was just upset. And I'm sure you've had these experiences too, where you're asking those questions. And I know guys, and we all know guys, that if you were asking them questions like that, they'd be like, dude, get the hell out of my face. I don't want to talk to you right now. But that difference is the same thing that Connor's talking about is the, realness. You got that same vibe and mentality that we had, hopping on with Tyler Sassy from Western Welding Academy. And, you could just see when somebody believes in something, you can just see it. And, the reason you were able to make a difference in that young man's life that day was, that light bulb went off in his head. And because he trusted you, you had built that relationship with him. And that's something as a leader. I think that's, there's so many different things, like you're saying, people reach for different ideas of, oh, well, what is a good leader? But at the end of the day, it's all these things, but giving people what they need. And if you're going to do that, you need to know the people. and that
Right.
starts with trust, and that's something
Trust.
that you have.
That's the key thing is trust. I want to share one other little story with you, man. I can go on for hours about this, but I can remember there was this instant. I was my foreman had a brother working on the floor, and this kid, dude, I mean, this kid worked out. I mean, he was tough and he was known for fighting. And I'm not a bad dude. I'm not a fighter. Uh, and I knew this kid that, at the drop of a hat could beat my eyeball shut if he wanted to and had the attitude to do it. And we had one run in before. It wouldn't, it's like one to deal with this, I don't want to deal with this. And his brother came to me, and both these young guys, they're both younger than me. And he told me, he said, go take care of him. He's not doing what he needs to do. Go take care of him. But going into it, I knew the situation, and bro, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was praying. I was praying the whole time over there on how do I need to handle this. And I knew he was having home problems. I knew he was having home problems. I mean, knew it. And I walk over there and I just talk to him. I say, hey, bro. I says, we need to get this product out today, man. I said, we need to, get up and get on it. I said, you're one of my guys. I need you. Dude, this kid stood up. I mean, he swole his shoulders back. I said, here we go. I said, I'm going to take whatever he brings. I said, I'm going to take whatever he brings. Here we go. And I'm serious. He swole back and he cussed me for everything I was worth. I mean, just blazed me up one side, down the other. And when he was done, I looked him square in the eyes and I smiled at him. I said, and I called him by name. I said, brother, I said, I know you're having a hard time. I said, but if it took you to unload all that on me to get you some relief, I said, I'm glad I was here. That grown man had tears in his eyes and he broke down. And he just began to apologize and apologize and apologize and apologize. I said, we're good. We're good. It's squashed. Don't worry about it. I said, we still got something to do. I said, we still got a day to get through. And his brother came rushing over there. He was ready to fire him. He was ready to fire his brother. And he come rushing over. He said, what's the problem over here? What's the problem over here? I said, ain't no problem. I said, me and your brother sitting here talking about work. Ain't that right? And Noah looked at me. He knew right then he could trust me. He knew right then. He knew right then he could trust me. And from that day forward, I never had another problem with that gentleman, and he worked just as hard as he could for me. And I went, like I said, I left there and I was with the ironworkers for almost 8 years. And I came back, and the first person to greet me, nothing about me. It was just that instant of being able to be there for somebody when they needed you. And whatever they needed to facilitate that, to be able to give that to them. And he looked at me. He came, and man is shaking my hand. He said, man, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. We're sitting there talking about stuff. And you could tell he had done evolved, as a human being. He had evolved, changed from where he was, that bitter, mean, hateful person. Now he's somebody, with authority, somebody of importance, somebody who actually cared about himself now. And it was good to see that. It was really refreshing, that it was, it could have went a whole another different way. We could have gotten each other's face. He could have swung on me. He could have went to jail and lost his job, his career, whatever. But I would have not gained his trust. I would have not had that positive impact on his life to see that it didn't have to be that way. And that's what's important. You said it, you hit the nail on the head, is trust. If your hands can trust you, they'll follow you to the gates of hell, with no questions. And that's what a leader's job is to make sure that you do everything within your means, your power, to make sure that they know that. And I've worked for guys that I wouldn't give you 50 cents for them, but I've worked for guys that, man, I just miss them to this day, just because of how they treated me. They understood, they felt me, they respected me, and it was mutual. So, like I said, in a nutshell, that's it. You hit it right on the head. It's trust. If I can't trust you, I'm really gonna not invest a whole lot of time with you anyway, and it's gonna be a social relationship, but never an intimate relationship. And that's what we really need to do is cultivate that intimacy on the job of I know you, you know me. Let's work this together. Where you're weak, I'm strong. Where I'm strong, you're weak. Let's do this together. And a three chord bond is harder to break. You know, and if you got people working like that together, then there's nothing they can't accomplish. There's nothing they can't change. Period.
Man, I'm sure Connor feels the same way. I almost feel selfish, and I'm glad we get to share this with so many people, and I'm so grateful. But every week I learn something new, and it's so cool to talk to people. You know, the American flag behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Connor feel the same way about our country. You're obviously very passionate. Um, Something I appreciate about Tyler Sassy was the very first thing he started talking about was, our country. It's all about America,
Mm-hmm.
just like you're saying, and building and maintaining what we have. But it's so cool to just talk with people all over the country and just realize things aren't as bleak as they may seem,
Mm-mm.
right? Like our country, I'm not going to say it's all daisies right now because it's not, and anybody with a brain can understand that. But at the same time, the second you throw the towel in, just like with the attitude stuff at work that we're talking about, the second you throw that towel in, you're done.
Yeah.
Your whole day, you just gave up on the day.
Yeah.
But just always pushing forward. And, there's so many good people in this country. And that's something through this podcast that, I've always known that. And everybody always says that. But, Mississippi, Georgia, all over the country, we
Right.
talk to people and it's just special.
Yeah. It really is. It's just like it's like when people can relate. It's like, hey, man, I tell this to anybody. I don't care if it's a bruise. I don't care if it's a cut, bruise, or blister. Pain's pains. The suck is the suck. And I tell my guys, hey, we just got to embrace the suck and make it to lunch. We make it to lunch, then we make it till 2. We make it to 2, we're almost home free. Just what we focus on is what we're really gonna harp on. You know, it's like if we're right now and it's sucking right now, that's all you're gonna see. But if you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, saying, "Hey, man, we're gonna get out of here in a little bit. There's a cold glass of sweet tea and a hot meal waiting on me, and somebody that actually, really cares about me." Hey, that's my motivation to get there safely and get there home. Get back home, and because we got to do this all over again tomorrow. So either going to do this or we're going to, like you'll see a lot of my videos. I got a hat. I have to let myself see it sometimes because I fall victim to that. I have to get myself out of that funk. My wife helps me out with that a lot. To tell that no, not today. You got to get up. You got to be who you need to be, and it simply says drag up or shut up. We're not going to sit and waste any time whining about what, get it out of your system. Hey, you might have to fuss about it. Get it out of your system, but let's get back on task. Let's get it done and go because we got bigger fish to fry. This is small potatoes, And as long as you look at it like that right there, I mean, it's not really downplaying the overall danger of it or whatever the scenario is. But it makes it feel, you know, achievable, if you will, achievable. And once you fix your mind on I can conquer this, then you just got to figure out how to conquer it, and get past it together. Because, like I said, one guy starting to complain, man, you got to shut that down quick.
Yeah.
It's a cancer, man. It spreads quick.
You got to shut it down.
Well, Mike, man,
Well,
you almost got me like ready to pack up and move and go work for you. You're just an inspiring dude. We really appreciate you coming on. I hope people really listen to this episode, and I hope they listen to that story, man, because it was inspiring. And if you just glanced over that story and didn't really go listen to it, rewind it a few minutes, guys, because that was an inspiring story to me, and can just show what true leadership can do for your work environment, for your country. And you don't have to be in a leadership role to do something like what Mike did for that guy. You could be the smallest guy on the crew. You could be the helper or the trash guy. It doesn't matter. You can still be that guy for that person on that crew. And that's what a leader is. It doesn't matter what role you're in. You can be a leader and do that. So I really appreciate you, Mike. That was a
Yes, sir.
really inspiring interview, and we appreciate you coming on.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, Mike, last thing I want to say, we always ask everybody at the end of all of our episodes, um, you know, if you had a quick minute just to say, what's your advice to the younger generation coming up, you know, kids coming right out of high school right now, what would it be?
Number one is diversity. Don't, and I tell people this, you've heard tunnel vision. I said, don't get funnel vision. Tunnel vision is here, but funnel vision is here, where you only got one target, one goal. Diversity. If I'd been taught diversity years ago, I would be a lot further along in my career than I am. The more diverse you are, the more valuable your time becomes, because you might not be able to weld what you want to weld. You may have to, they might not be that area of work available for you. So hey, we don't have any welding. Well, I'm a certified rigger. Oh, well, we need a rigger. We need somebody over here that knows about how to rig. Or I know I may not be rigging. Or hey, we need a hydraulics guy. Hey, I know about hydraulics. I've got a little bit of experience in hydraulics. And experience experience, when you tell people you have experience, you don't have to really expound on the extent of time you had. Experience is within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever you have had hands on. That's experience. I'm familiar with that. Let me get in here and try to help you. That takes you into initiative of taking that step of, hey, this is out of my comfort zone. I don't want to do this, but hey, it's going to keep the lights on until something else comes up. Maybe this is a bigger opportunity. But the number one thing is to know your true value. Know your true value of what you're actually worth. That you don't have to hold your. And I kind of like the old Oliver Twist, where he's got the little bowl in his hand and he says, "So can I have some more?" Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Know your worth. Negotiate. Learn how to negotiate your value to a company, contractor, or wherever you're going to be employed, so that you get the best dollar for your time and for your skill. And that's what you're there for anyway. So you might as well be getting the best out of the benefits, everything, the negotiation. And if somebody calls your phone, an employer calls your phone, then they have taken the time to contact you. So they need you. That changes the negotiations. If you called them, well, this is what I have. This is what I have to offer. Take it or leave it. But if they're calling you, hey, man, I need you. Okay, well, let's talk money. Well, I can't do it for that. Well, sorry, you wasted a phone call. Click, give it a little bit. They'll call you back. They called you once, they'll call you again. Guaranteed. But don't just settle for that low dollar just because they dangling that carrot at the end of the stick. Know your value. Know what you're actually worth. And it'll take you places really fast.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Just a couple last things to say before we, end this call. Just, a shout out to Knox Apparel, Boom
Yes, sir.
Nation, Welding Caps by Lori, all things that I found through Mike. So we'll share his page and go give him a follow. Go give those pages a follow too. And just like Connor said, it's cool and it's just re-listen to it. If you're walking away from the podcast, rewind it or pause it and come back to it, because this is worthwhile for sure. So we appreciate it. And do you have anything else to say, Connor?
No, I'm good, man. I'm just really appreciate you, Mike. Seriously, man. You're an inspiring dude, and they talk a lot of crap about the older generation too, but you're one of a good one. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate you, though. Seriously.
Hey, I thank you guys, man. Y'all keep doing what you're doing, because this content's valuable. You can look up podcasts from several years ago, and they're still as relevant as they are today, because they're going to resonate with somebody. It's a need for information, so keep doing what you're doing, man. You've got my support completely.
Thank you, man. That means a lot to
Yeah.
us. To everybody listening, all the new viewers in the different countries, we'll give you guys a shout out in another episode. But really, we appreciate you. Thank you for consuming what we're bringing to the table. And if you guys have any friends or if you guys would like to be on the show, just contact us through our social media pages or stories@bluecollarangst.com, and we'll get you on here. Mike shot us a DM, and we started talking, and that's how he got on here. So, but yeah, we appreciate you, Mike, and we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, man.